Okay, so this week we will be looking at managing labor cost, and that is unit 6. Okay, so the objective for this lesson is by the end, you should be able to list the different types of employee compensation, explain and calculate labor costs according to existing legislation, understand the differences between internal and external contractors for services, and understand the principles and procedures for establishing labor cost controls. Okay, so most customers of restaurants and other food service operations at one point or another witness situations that suggest a need for labor control. Sometimes it seems nearly impossible to get any service, for the servers in site clearly have more customers to serve than they could possibly handle. And even when a customer has managed to place an order, it seems like an eternity before food is served. At other times, there appear to be more servers on duty than there are customers in the dining room. And one wonders how the management can afford to have so much help around when no business is there to support it. In the first situation, you can readily imagine the number of customers who walk in and out in disgust without ordering at all, as well as those who silently resolve never to return after waiting 15 minutes or more to order and another 15 minutes to be served. The total sales for the day are undoubtedly less than they might have been if adequate service had been provided. Total sales for future days may also be affected because of customers who have decided to take their business elsewhere. In the restaurant where more staff members are on duty than are warranted by current business, the wages paid to unnecessary staff increases your payroll costs. At the very least, this will lead to owner dissatisfaction and probably to dissatisfaction among those employees whose income depend largely on the tips they receive from customers. In either case, one certain effect will be the reduction of net profit from current operations caused by lower sales in the first instance and by increased sales in the second instance. Clearly, there is a need to manage staffing levels and control payroll costs to minimize sales while to maximize sales while minimizing costs. Labor cost control is an attempt to maximize efficiency from staff without compromising standards of operating performance. By that we mean labor control attempts to have the right number of staff with the appropriate skills on duty for the number of customers in attendance at any given time. Labor control is the most difficult to achieve because of the relative unpredictability of the number of customers in a restaurant at any given time, among other factors. So it is the objective of the restaurant business to ensure that you have the right amount of staff on hand at the right time to serve the clients that you have, because too little staff means that you're going to have dissatisfied customer, and that can ultimately result in a reduction in your market share. Too much staff, and then you're going to find that your overhead is going to be too much, and that can eat out your profit. All right, so let us look at some labor cost considerations. In hotels, restaurants, and all other related food and beverage establishments, the cost of labor accounts for a considerable amount of money. Taken as a percentage of sales, labor cost varies widely from one food service establishment to another. It generally ranges from 15% to 45%. In some isolated instances, labor cost percentages are as high as 60%, although this tends to be true only in establishments operated as a not-for-profit organization. Because labor cost is such a major consideration of labor in the typical food and beverage enterprise, an ability to deal with it effectively is an important requirement for food and beverage managers. However, any discussion of labor cost control must be preceded by a basic introduction to the following. 1, employee compensation, and 2, the determinants of total labor cost and labor cost percentages. So let us look at employee compensation. Let us start with the definition of compensation, because labor cost or employee compensation consumes such a major share of sales dollars in food and beverage operations. It is important to understand the various components of labor cost before proceeding to the discussion of labor cost control. The term compensation is used to refer to all forms of pay and other rewards going to employees as a result of their employment. However, it is important to note that compensation can also refer to money that is paid to someone for something that has been lost or damaged, such as workers' compensation for unemployed or injured workers. It can also refer to the payout as a result of a lawsuit. In a more general sense, compensation can mean anything of value given to make up for a loss, such as a paid dinner to compensate you for your time and trouble. In a sense, compensation is a counterbalance. Compensation usually takes the form of monetary payment exchange for time, labor, and expertise. So let us look at the different types of compensation. So the different types of compensation include salary, hourly wages, sales commission, tips, stock options, bonuses, incentive pay, other variable pay, benefits such as healthcare or paid leave, and non-monetary compensation such as recognition or meals, etc. So, what are the compensation types? In the hospitality industry, employees receive 2 forms of compensation. You have direct compensation and indirect compensation. However, there is another one that is called deferred compensation, and we will take a look at those. So direct compensation is received by an employee directly related to that person's job. It is a base pay plus overtime or incentive pay that an employee receives and includes wages, salaries, tips, bonuses, and commission. So when you look on your pay stub, you'll probably see basic pay and then overtime. Because most of us who work in the hospitality sector, we always do a few hours overtime, anywhere from 2 to 8. anywhere from 2 to 8 hours overtime, because we have a 48-hour work week or a 42-hour work week, depending on if your organization pays you for your lunchtime. All right, so traditionally, the term salary is used to refer to a fixed dollar amount of compensation paid on a weekly, monthly, or annual basis, regardless of the actual number of hours worked. Wages, in contrast, always take the actual number of hours worked into account. Wages for a given employee are calculated by multiplying the employee's hourly rate by the number of hours worked up to the number of hours at which overtime rates apply. At that point, the hourly rate increases, but the same procedure is followed to calculate overtime wages. Tips is also known as gratuities, although not paid from an employer's revenues, are also compensation in the eyes of the law and are treated by the government for purposes of calculating such taxes as income tax and NIS, NHT, and education tax. Many workers many workers in the hospitality industry earn more from tips than from wages. Bonus is a term that refers to a dollar amount exceeding an employee's regular wage or salary, given as a reward for some type of job performance or to show appreciation for service to the business at holiday time. So especially in the hotel industry, they normally pay us a bonus towards the end of the year, somewhere there in mid-December. And it depends on a number of factors, largely whether or not the company performed well financially during that period. And so they would give you a bonus. The next one we have is commission. So by contrast, dollar amounts calculated as a percentage of sales. Travel agents and some both banquet managers commonly earn commissions on their sales. So do many convention and event planners and catering sales staff. Sometimes some hotels may pay their staff a commission, like if they sell certain services, like perhaps if you're at the bar and you have like the top shelf liquor, the bar manager might say, okay, they'll give you $1 for every bottle of Moet Chandon or some top shelf liquor that you sell. And that is to incentivize the bar staff now to get the guests to buy more of those beverages. So let us look at indirect compensation. Indirect compensation is that benefit to a current employee other than direct compensation. It is a social contract between employee and employer and is typically designed to attract and keep loyal employees. It includes everything from legally required programs to those that the employer decides to provide. It may include paid vacations. I think that's a legal requirement. Health benefits, so you get a health card, life insurance, and free meals. Most hotels give their staff free meals, and free living accommodations. I know that free living accommodation is usually like for entertainment staff and some categories of managers, like the entertainment manager, the chief engineer.
But by some point, it calculate from their salaries somewhat, sir.
No, it is at the discretion of the employer how they do it. So, well, obviously for the life insurance, they have to decide how much they want to insure the staff. For the health benefits, that is also dependent on the employer, how much they want to absorb in your medical cost. Paid vacation, they decide how much paid vacation you get. Because like some people, if you get a month, they're not gonna pay you for a month. They might pay you for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. The free meals, they decide how many free meals you get. Some hotels give you, as long as you're on the shift and meals are being served, then you are allowed to eat. Some hotel you might only be allowed 1 meal per shift. So it depends on the employer. So you also have use of recreational facilities operated by the employer. Like some might allow you to use the gym or the kids club or the games room or something like that. Discounts and accommodations at other properties within the chain. So they have friends and family rates. For some hotels have the friends and family rates. And there are many other possibilities, including the use of a company vehicle. I know they usually like if you have like a, what you call it? They have a company driver, like the person who goes to the post office and pick up the mail and deliver stuff. And so those persons get a company vehicle. And well, it depends on which the category of establishment that you're working for. Because some of them requires you to drive, and so the company may provide a vehicle for you. Reimbursement for outside classes, child care. Well, I don't know if anybody who does that in Jamaica. I know in the States, some companies do provide, they even have like a daycare facility on their premises, but I'm not aware of any company in Jamaica that has this. I know like Conduent, they do that, not locally, while the employee is at work. Counseling of various kinds. Well, I know that if there is an incident that happens at the workplace, then the employer is obliged to provide some form of counseling. But I don't know if any company will have like a counseling thing as an ongoing part of operations. And paid sick leave, that's by law, and funeral leave. I know I think there's 3 days compassionate leave by law. So if you have someone who died in your family, you need to go to the funeral. I think there's a compassionate leave that you can sign for.
That is varied, sir. I think that is only for your mother or your father and your child.
Okay. In some instances, such as health insurance, indirect compensation may be partly paid for by the employee. The part that the employer pays for is considered indirect compensation. Paid vacation is among the most common forms of indirect compensation available to employees in the hospitality industry today. It should be noted that in some countries, paid vacations are required by law. It is required by law in Jamaica. I'm not aware of the countries that it's not required by law. Paid vacations are typically linked to length of service with the employer. In many instances, employees are awarded a basic vacation period without pay amounting to 2 weeks per year. Those whose length of service reaches some predetermined number of years, example 5 years, are given an additional week with pay so that they are able to take 3 weeks off with pay each year. Another approach is to give each employee 2 days of paid vacation per year of service, up to a maximum of 20 days for 10 years of service. Additional, well, I don't know of anywhere that does that. I think like probably the government workers may have this kind of arrangement, but I don't know of any hotel because everybody just gets flat out 2 weeks. The managers, I think, yeah, the same 2 weeks that they get. So I'm not really too sure. I'm not aware of any company that does this. Non-governmental organization, as a matter of fact. Okay, so Health benefits, including medical, dental, and optical insurance, are among the most sought after forms of indirect compensation. They're also among the most costly. Health benefits are commonly in the form of an insurance plan, some or all of the costs of which are paid by the employer, who also assumes the entire cost of administering the health insurance plan, hiring personnel in the Human Resources Office to process forms, maintain records, and generally attend to the myriad details associated with such a plan. So I think every hotel has health insurance for their staff, but I think you have to reach like a certain, it's like, you know, they have different categories or tiers of staff. So if you're like a casual worker, or if you're in a probationary period, then you wouldn't get the health insurance until you get a like a real contract with the company. Then that's when you get your health card. Life insurance coverage, another popular form of indirect compensation, provides protection for the families of covered employees, thus saving these employees the considerable cost that can be associated with life insurance coverage. I know that companies generally take out life insurance and their staff anyway. So even if you're not the one who gets the insurance benefit, your company has a life insurance out on you. So when you die, they claim that insurance and get that money. A lot of people don't know that, but companies have life insurance out on their staff. Okay. Many establishments provide meals to employees during their working hours. Thus, food services employees assigned to work from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. may be permitted to have breakfast and lunch on premises. In hotels and other large properties where this is permitted, special facilities may be set up to be used by employees. So they have like a staff canteen. And in some cases, they may have like 2 separate canteens, one for like the regular staff and then one for like managers. In some cases, one are depending on the size of the establishment, because sometimes, like if it's a big hotel and they have a lot of staff, they may have to have like 2 or 3 staff canteen, especially if you have like, how do I put it? Like blocks. You know, like you have block A over here, so block B over there, so block C way down there, so they may have, you know, different staff canteens so that the staff are who like service one block are not inconvenienced and have to go all the way over to wherever to get lunch. Because I know like Half Moon, where, you know, the property is big and sprawling, then it might be a bit cumbersome for the staff to have to congregate in one area for lunch. Okay, so in some cases, one or more member of the kitchen staff may be assigned exclusively to the preparation of employees' meals, including meals in a compensation package, is generally very popular with employees who gain substantially from this very tangible benefit. Increasingly, employers are offering counseling of various forms. I'm not aware of. Does your organization offer any form of counseling?
Depends, sir. I think it happens rarely. Like, so for instance, if a member from a department die, or then they will offer counseling to that department, the department.
Yeah, but it's not like an established thing to say, okay, if you are go through any kind of stress, come over. Okay, because I'm not aware of that. I know, like if there's a fire or someone got killed or someone died or something,
from
then
that department.
They will say you can go to HR, but I don't know that they have anything where if you're really having a struggle, you can go see anybody. All right, thank you for that. Where was I? Increasingly, employers are offering counseling for various forms, including alcohol and drug counseling, counseling for various family problems such as a divorce, death in the family, and so on. In some lodging properties, part of the employee's compensation package may include living accommodations. This is particularly true in resort hotels, but not uncommon in some large transient hotels. In the former, living accommodations may be available to all employees, unless, unless that hotel is somewhere out of the way and you have to live on property. I'm not aware of any that does that. In the latter, accommodations are likely to be limited to some managerial staff who are expected to be on call 24 hours a day. Many resort properties, including their employees' compensation packages, the right to use various recreational facilities. Can you use any of the facilities at work? As I can't.
You only can do that like if you join the gym, you can use the gym. Other from that, you can't use any facility apart
Okay.
from the staff wise. That's it.
Okay. Because I know most hotels, I mean, I'm not really allowed the staff to do anything. Only thing you have a lunch.
Yeah, yes, sir. That's like I said, if you're a member of if you're a member of the gym, then within the hour that you should. But other from that, nothing, sir.
Okay, no problem. All right. Many hotel and motel chain organizations offer their employees special discounted rates on accommodation. Yeah, most of them do that. Those who choose to travel during their vacation periods find this an extremely useful and valuable form of indirect compensation. All right, so let us look at deferred compensation. Now, deferred compensation is defined as compensation received by an employee after the conclusion of his or her period of employment. So that means you say, either your contract done, or you resign, or you retire, or you're fired, or you were made redundant. So you left the work. Two of the most important forms of deferred compensations are pension benefits. So you know it's after you actually retire, you get the pension, right? And that collective group of benefits generally known as Social Security. So ours is the NIS. And obviously you get NIS when you reach retirement age. The employer is required by law to match the amounts withheld for employees' paycheck for Social Security. As this, okay, so our NIS rate is 3% for both employer and employee. So that means that the employee gets 6% national insurance for his or her from his or her gross pay. All right, so the employer pays 3%, this employee pays 3%. An additional, okay, that's not right. It is obviously important for owners and managers of a food and beverage operation to have broad and comprehensive knowledge of the various forms of compensation found in the industry, all of which have some impact, direct or indirect, on the overall cost of labor in an establishment, because these are costs that are coming out of the pocket of the employer. So let us look at the determinants of labor cost and labor cost control. All right, so the cost of labor is affected by several important considerations. Some of these are within the scope of a manager's control, but others are not. Each plays a role in determining the total cost of labor and labor cost percent in food or beverage operations. Each can therefore be described as the determinant of labor cost or labor cost percentage. Direct employee cost indirect costs, and deferred costs are considered part of the total labor costs. These determinants have a different effect on the total cost of labor or on the cost of labor expressed as a percentage of sales. Some affect both. The significance of each varies from one establishment to another. Please note that these determinants are so interdependent that managers do not normally have the luxury of dealing with them one at a time in this fashion. So let us look at the labor control rate, which is one of the determinants of labor costs and the labor cost percentage. Labor turnover rate is a ratio relating to the number of departing employees to the total number of employees on the staff, and usually expressed as a percentage. So basically, you would look at how much people them fire for the year or how much people left for whatever reason for the year versus how many employees the organization typically have at peak efficiency. Really? And traditionally, this percentage is usually high in the food service industry. Every minute, people left for them fired. It has been commonly measured at 100% per year across the industry, with some establishments having high rates such as 300%. When jobs become vacant and managers decide that those jobs must be filled, an individual manager must assign responsibility for recruiting, interviewing, selecting, and hiring replacement personnel. Large organizations often have human resources personnel to attend to much of this work, but small restaurants do not. Instead, the work must be done by restaurant managers, possibly with help from assistant managers, chefs, stewards, dining room managers, and others. I know that in the hotel, typically you interview with the HR manager first, and then now they will let you talk to the department manager. So whomever is in charge of the department that you're going to work with, then you will have to be interviewed by them. So the interview with HR is kind of like a screening, but then the real person now who gets to decide if you get the job would be the actual manager. So if you're going to be working in the kitchen, the executive chef or the assistant executive chef would decide, would interview you and then say, all right, man. And then now, then put you on now to the general manager as a, kind of the general manager get interviews you to get a general feel to see probably how well you would have fit in with the organization. And in most cases, it's a kind of formality, because once the department manager say, yes, man, me want that staff here, you have to do something drastic for them not to go through with that contract. But generally, the HR screen you, the department manager interviews you, and then you as a matter of formality, you have an interview with the general manager. All right, so high labor turnover rates generally result in higher labor costs. It has been estimated by some authorities that the cost of replacing a hospitality employee may be as high as $2,500 for advertising, interviewing, checking background. I'm sure it's more than that. Checking backgrounds and referencing, training, and so on. Using this figure, it is easy to calculate that the potential expense to a restaurant with 50 employees and a turnover rate of 100% can be as high as $125,000 per year. So the formula for calculating the labor turnover rate is the number of employees who have left, right, divided by the average number of employees at full staff times 100%. All right. So for example, let's say that at the end of the summer season, you lost 15 employees, right? Let's break down the steps. Step one, your restaurant typically have 29 employees. And so it would be 15 divided by 29. So the 15 people who left divided by the 29 employees that you typically have, and that will give you 0.517. And then now you multiply the 0.517 by 100%, which is equal to 51.7%. That means that your staff turnover rate was half. All right, let's look at training. So the need for some degree of training exists in all food service establishments. Managers, after all, are not typically able to find employees with complete and accurate knowledge of the jobs for which they are hired. All jobs require some level of training. At the most elementary level, training may entail merely showing a new dishwasher the location of the dish machine and explaining operation of the controls. With an experienced cook, training may involve a meeting to familiarize the cook with the nature of the menu or the preferences of the restaurant's clientele. On another level, training may include daily meetings with servers to make sure that each understands the menu fully and is aware of which items it is most beneficial to sell. Then again, training may mean taking completely inexperienced people and teaching them everything they need to know to perform particular jobs. This may be done on premises or in facilities provided by such outside agencies as unions, public schools, community colleges, or proprietary schools. Training can be a key factor in reducing the labor turnover rate in a restaurant. Over the years, studies have shown that the relationship between extent of training and turnover rate is positive. Generally, restaurants with training programs that are both extensive and effective tend to have employees who report greater job satisfaction than those in restaurants where training is ignored. In restaurants with good training programs, customers often report that they receive better service and that staff members appear to be more friendly and attentive. Where this is the case, the working environment is more pleasant, and this makes for lower turnover rate. So generally, in the hotel, sometimes they might have somebody come in, like they might pay an outside contractor to come in and do training, but it depends on the kind of training. Because like if you're looking at, let's say, customer service, then they'll probably hire somebody to do that. If there is some new procedure or law or whatever external to the organization that you must become familiar with, they will hire somebody to do it. We know about the fire training. They probably get people from Jamaica Fire Brigade to come in and do the fire warden certification. CPR, they hire somebody from one of the hospitals or some private hospital to come in and do the CPR training. Can I think of anything else? And sometimes they have like personal development training. So they might, I don't know, hire somebody to come in and talk to about grievance procedure or sexual harassment or something like that.
They get the different various licenses also.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
They get the various licenses, so you have to have people to come in and perform training so they can be certified.
Yes, they do that as well. All right, so we're going to move on now to labor contracts. Hold on. Why am I moving to labor contracts? Labor legislation. Sorry. So I'm not going to go into them in depth, but there are some legislation that governs the employer-employee relationship in Jamaica. And you have the Trade Union Act of 1919, and this governs the establishment, function, and conduct of registration of trade unions, outlines the procedures for gaining membership and settling industrial disputes. Then you have the Labor Relations and Industrial Dispute Act of 1975. And this stipulates the rights of the worker in relation to trade union membership and industrial relations. Then you have the Employment Termination and Redundancy Payment Act of 1974. And this applies to all workers, including household workers. However, it excludes civil service workers in central and local government departments. Then you have the Holiday with Pay Act of 1974, and this sets out the conditions under which workers are entitled to holiday and sick pay with and sick leave with pay or such gratuities and benefits as may be determined. Then you have the Minimum Wage Act of 1938. So I may have 1974. I have it. Okay. So the Minimum Wage Act of 1938 allows for the fixing of minimum wages to be paid to certain categories of workers. All right, let me just go ahead and change that. Minimum Wage Act of 1938, and this is 74. All right. Okay, sorry about that. And then now we have the Maternity Leave Act of 1979. In order to protect all female workers from possible unfair treatment, the government had to set certain minimum standards for employers to follow. These standards, however, does not prevent employers from offering better deals to their female workers. And in fact, many organizations make offers which are above the national minimum standards in order to attract suitable workers. Let's move on now to labor contract. So the presence or absence of labor contracts will always be an important factor affecting labor costs. Where employees are organized, that is, they are a member of a union, and labor contracts exist, wages for each category of employee are likely to be higher than they would be in the absence of a union. I know most hotels don't want them employees to be unionized. In addition, interestingly, such fringe benefits as vacation pay, sick pay, employees' meals, and health insurance are more likely to be found where union organizations and contracts exist. Although the effects of wages and fringe benefits on labor costs are apparent in situations where labor contracts exist, other factors also have a significant effect. Of primary concern are provisions in labor contracts that limit management's freedom to change work rules. Such contracts typically restrict management's ability to arbitrarily alter the duties of an employee in a particular job category. One effect of this may be to force the employer to hire someone for a job even when existing employees may have the time and ability to do the job. This would obviously increase total labor costs. This one, I know that most times, you know, you're there work and out of the blue, them tell you say, oh, you need to start. So they add on another task that is a part of your job requirement. But the problem I find with it is that in some cases, the additional work that they're demanding from the staff is substantial. And so if the additional task that you're asking the employee to perform is substantial, then you should assign some monetary value to it. So you need to increase the staff pay to compensate them for the additional work that you're asking them to do, given that the additional work is significant. But most employers don't do that if the staff is not unionized. So them give one bag of work for do whenever in the job description and they don't pay you for it. Typical. All right, so let us look at the use of part-time staff, because this is one strategy that some restaurants use to lower their labor cost. So the use of part-time staff, you know, in place of full-time staff can have a significant impact on labor costs. The extent of the impact depends, obviously, on the difference between the full-time wage and the part-time wage for specific types of work, and on the extent to which part-time help is used. One example will be sufficient to illustrate the point. All right, so I have the example on the screen. Suppose Island Grill has 5 full-time cooks on duty in the kitchen daily, 7 days each week, to cover the 35 shifts, right? So that's 5 per day multiplied by 7 days. The manager employs 7 full-time cooks, each of whom works 5 shifts. The prevailing wage in the area of full-time cooks is $200 per hour, plus the cost of a package of employee benefits amounting to an additional 20%. The labor cost for these 7 full-time workers will be calculated as follows. So you have 7 cooks times 35 hours times $200 per hour, and that will be $45,000. Plus the benefits, which is 20% of the $49,000, and that's $9,800. So the total labor cost for Island Grill will be $58,800. Thus, it would be possible for
the 20% would be 20% of the 49,000.
Yes, because remember they get benefits, which is 20% of whatever you're paying them. All right.
So that is
9,800. So it's 20% of 49,000. That should give you 9,800, and then you add, because that's the benefit, and that's for all of them, you know, not one. That's for all of them.
Okay, sir.
All right. So it would be possible for the manager of Island Grill to reduce labor costs from 50. Oops, sorry, I jumped ahead. Now, suppose the manager decides to cover some of the shifts by hiring part-time cooks with adequate skills at $175 per hour, plus the cost of a smaller package of employee benefits, an additional 10%. If it is possible to keep 4 full-time cooks to cover 20 shifts and to hire part-time cooks to cover the remaining 15 shifts, the new labor cost would be calculated as follows. So remember, you have 4 full-time cooks and they work 35 hours at $200 per hour. So that would be $28,000. Remember, they have a 20% benefit, so you have to add the benefits into that as well. So that's 20% of, sorry, that's 20% of, I'm not sure why I have 20 here instead of 20%. That's 20% of the 28,000.
28,000.
And then now, we're going to look at the part-time cooks. So it's 15 shifts that they're going to be working at 7 hours times $75 per hour, and that's $18,325. They get a smaller benefit, which is 10%. So that's 10% of the $18,375, which is $1,837.50. And then you add up, all of that, and it gives you $53,812.50. So if you realize that it's less than the $58,800. So by hiring some of the staff part-time, the manager was able to reduce the total labor cost. So it is possible for the manager of Island Grill to reduce the labor cost from $58,800 to $53,812, or 8.5%, by reducing the number of full-time cooks from 7 to 4 and hiring part-time cooks at lower hourly wages to cover the 105 hours previously covered by full-time cooks.
So that it is more beneficial to the company.
Yes, but that's just looking at one factor, which is total labor cost. Because yes, I mean, if they come and they not treat your customers right, if they not do the wrong. So we are just looking at labor costs, so we're looking at just one variable, because remember, yes, you have to look at other variables too. You can't just, I'm gonna hire some part-time workers to work in my restaurant, but then if them are road driver your customers, it's going to cost you more in the long run. So you have to look at the bigger picture and not just be zeroing in on the cost, because then you might end up hurting yourself. But since we're looking at total labor cost, this is one way that you can do that. And another determinant is outsourcing. So outsourcing is arranging to have work done on a contract basis by outside organizations rather than by full-time employees. I know that sometimes some hotels will not be big ones, but like the small ones, they may have a company where them just contract to do them housekeeping or them dining room. So the dining room staff is not the hotel staff, is a company send them there, or the bar staff is not the hotel staff. I know some hotels do that, but it's not generally like the big brand name ones like Sanders. They're not going to do that because they need to maintain a certain level of uniformity in service delivery. So when the guest comes, they get that sandals treatment, or whatever you want to call it. All right, so it can also affect labor costs. Some establishments, for example, no longer rely on full-time employees to clean the premises at night after the close of the business. Instead, the owners and managers have engaged firms that contract to perform night cleaning services for a fixed amount per month. This is generally done in the United States. Similarly, many food service organizations now use contract services to calculate payroll and prepare paychecks, rather than have the work done by their own employees. Others no longer employed skilled kitchen personnel to prepare such items as baked goods, dessert, and ice carvings. Still, others are purchasing frozen portioned entries rather than hiring high-cost chefs. Many are finding it less costly to rely on outside contractors for various goods and services that were commonly provided by in-house personnel in years past. Where this is the case, there is a significant effect on labor cost. Another determinant is sales value. So for a restaurant of any given size, increases in sales value will result in increased productivity per employee up to his or her maximum capacity to perform. For example, in a hypothetical restaurant selling only hamburgers and employing only one cook, 100 hamburgers are typically prepared and sold during one busy hour of the lunch period. During the slack period of the afternoon, the same cook prepares only 10 hamburgers during a 1 hour period. If the cook is being paid $175 per hour, the labor cost per unit produced during the peak period is equal to the hourly wage of the $175 divided by the 100 hamburgers produced during that period, or $1.75 per unit. The labor cost per unit for hamburgers prepared during the slow period is equal to $175 in wage divided by the 10 hamburgers, which is $17.50 per unit. It is clear from the foregoing example that the cook in question is working at less than his proven capacity during the slack hour, obviously because of the absence of customers. We can see that as the sales volume increases, the cook's labor is used more efficiently. At the same time, as his efficiency increases, the cost of labor per unit produced actually decreases. Therefore, it is apparent that an increase in sales volume results in greater employee efficiency at lower labor costs per unit. In the previous example, one employee is the minimum number that can be hired for that particular job. However, in larger establishments that require greater number of employees as the minimum, it is possible to better schedule employees for greater efficiency, thus keeping each employee busy a greater amount of time. It is desirable to schedule fewer employees during slack periods and more during busy periods, thus increasing individual efficiency. In addition, large restaurants are often able to take advantage of economies of scale of large-scale production. In the simplest terms, this may also be described as the division of labor, assigning individuals to the tasks they are qualified to complete and paying each wage commensurate with level of ability and training. For example, a single cook may be required to wash dishes, keep the counter clear, and act as a cashier. And we see that happening all the time. All for the single wage of $175 per hour. In effect, the job of cook, dishwasher, counter person, and cashier are all being paid $175 per hour. It's kind of like you may have a person like the night auditor at a hotel, right? So not only is he the night auditor, he's doing telephone operations. He's the person who's at the front desk. So whatever is the person who's taking reservations. So all those functions of the reservations agent, the guest services agent, the front office agent, the telephone operator are being performed by that one person. So instead of having 5 different staff, one to answer the telephone, one to take reservations during the night, one to handle guest query, one to work at the front desk, you just have one person do all of that during the night because there's not much to do anyway. So you can significantly reduce your labor cost by having this one staff doing all of these duties to make maximum use of the staff's time while on the shift. Furthermore, the particular individual in the job might not be very good at the side.
Excuse me a minute, okay?
Okay, no problem.
Yes, sir.
All right. So in large establishments where there is enough work to keep a specialist in any category busy, most of the time, it is usually cheaper to hire the specialist at the prevailing wage for the job category, thus reducing the labor cost per unit produced. Consider an illustration. If the hamburger restaurant cited earlier were large enough, it could hire cooks at $175 per hour, dishwashers at $180 per hour, and a counter person at $90 per hour, thus resulting in a reduction of the overall labor cost per unit produced. As an additional benefit, the specialists should be more efficient at their jobs and capable of performing higher quality work. In the long run, this should reduce the labor cost per unit still further. Another determinant of labor cost is sales value. It is well known that labor costs vary from each part of the country to another. In many rural areas, particularly where jobs are scarce and competition for those jobs is intense, employers can often pay comparatively lower hourly rates and so keep labor costs down. In the same condition can often be noted outside of rural areas, particularly in depressed areas and in areas where living costs are low. However, although such conditions as these may result in lower labor costs in dollars, labor costs as a percentage of sales may not be lower at all because of the lower menu prices in effect in such areas. In contrast, the opposite effect can often be noted in metropolitan areas where living costs are greater and wages scales are higher. Under such conditions, labor costs in dollars may be quite high by some standards, but as a percentage of sales, they may be identical to those found in rural and depressed areas. For example, consider a certain item produced in a kitchen in one area at a labor cost of $225 and sold at a menu price of $700. Contrast that with the same item produced in another area at a labor cost of $450 and sold for $1,500. In the second instance, the labor cost in dollars is twice what it is in the first. In both cases,
I'm only seeing on your screen break even.
yeah, man, I am at sales volume. So the explanation I have on my notes, but it is not in the PowerPoint presentation because I didn't want it. It was too long and I wouldn't get enough time to finish the PowerPoint presentation. So I don't have it. Yeah, I don't have it written out as I normally would in the previous one. So I just everything is summarized here. So if you notice, the determinants are on the left. This is an explanation on the menu. So when I get to menu, we will explain the break even.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right. So in the second instance, the labor cost in dollars is twice what it is in the first. In both cases, the relationship between labor cost and sales price is the same. So let us go to, oh, I didn't have that. All right, so we have layout. I'm not sure I don't have it done there. Labor cost is directly affected by the manner in which space is used. Within the work area, equipment may be arranged to facilitate rather than impede employees' ability to perform their tasks. In new establishments, equipment and facilities can be suitably arranged during construction. In Charmin, are you hearing that noise?
No, sir, I'm not hearing anything.
Okay,
I'm just
good.
hearing you reading. I'm not hearing a noise.
Okay, good. Where was I? Da, da, da. In new establishments, equipment and facilities can be suitably arranged during construction. In converted properties, arrangement is often less than satisfactory because of walls that cannot be moved, plumbing that cannot be readily relocated, and room sizes that are less than ideal for a given purpose. If equipment is too poorly arranged, employees may have to walk excessive distances. In extreme cases, it may even be necessary to hire employees who may not have been required if equipment and facilities had been arranged better. Let us look at an example. If the person working at the broiler does not have ready access to a reach-in refrigerator, he or she may have to walk a considerable distance each time a broiler order is placed. If the broiler is extremely busy, it may be necessary to assign one person to bring items from a refrigerator when they are required at the broiler station. In some older hotels, the kitchen is so far removed from the dining room that a larger than necessary staff is required. In all of the aforementioned instances, equipment and facilities have been poorly or improperly arranged, with the effect of rising labor costs to higher levels than would be otherwise necessary. It is not a question of the workers being inefficient, but rather the poor layout of the restaurant. So you have to look at your restaurant layout because that too can affect labor costs, right? Because if, so for instance, you have the buffet, right? And the kitchen is so far away from the buffet that the staff have to travel a great distance to get the stuff that is being prepared in the kitchen to take it to the buffet. That is going to reduce the efficiency that the staff has. Or if you have the chef at the a la carte restaurant, and perhaps the stuff that he needs, he has to get it from some far away place, then that is going to reduce the efficiency of the staff. So you have to take into consideration the layout, access to the ingredients that you need, and access to the customers, and see how best you can, compact those that it increases you operating your restaurant establishment as efficiently as possible and thereby lowering your labor costs. Preparation is also a determinant of labor costs. So theoretically, one could rate all food service operations on a scale of 0 to 100 to reflect the amount of preparation required on the premises. At the 0 end of the scale would be any establishment that purchased all items pre-cooked, fully prepared, and pre-portioned, thus requiring minimal preparation beyond reheating prior to sale. At the opposite end would appear those establishments that prepare everything on the premises, including such basic ingredients as mayonnaise and ketchup. In places falling near the 0 end of the scale, labor costs could clearly be kept minimal. Foods could be served in the disposable packages in which they were purchased, thus eliminating the need for dishwashing. Clearly, this type of establishment will require largely unskilled personnel in the kitchen. Cooking would merely be a matter of reheating, and the services of a traditional chef would not be required. Conversely, restaurants at the other end of the scale would require kitchen personnel with special talents for comparatively complex and conceivably elaborate preparations, probably under the expert guidance of a highly trained and highly paid executive chef. In addition, such an establishment would require additional personnel to take charge of the many responsibilities involved in the purchasing, receiving, storing, and issuing of the expensive and highly perishable basic ingredients required for many of the preparations. Although few, if any, restaurants would appear at either absolute end of such a scale, a reasonable number would be near either end. Typical fast food restaurants would appear at the lower end, and traditional restaurants offering haute cuisine would appear at the higher end. Clearly, fast food restaurants have considerable lower labor costs than those offering continental dishes to customers who have gourmet taste. So, I know that most hotels, the stuff is prepared on site, right? So they would have a higher labor cost. But like for a diner, the diner would probably order most of the stuff pre-cooked, so they won't need that many staff to function in their organization, and then that would now lower their labor costs. So we see how preparation, food prep, contribute to your labor costs, because if you prepare everything on the premises, it simply means that you'll have to hire more staff. And if you don't prepare anything on the premises, it simply means that you would hire less staff, and therefore your labor cost is either increased or decreased depending on where you fall in that spectrum. Service is also a determinant of labor costs. Now, food service establishments could also be charted on a scale of 0 to 100 based on the amount of service offered to the customer. At the lower end of the scale, one would find vending machine operations offering no service. At the other end would be continental establishments offering French service that includes some cooking as an element in the service. Typically, the finishing of entrees and some other items is accomplished in the dining room by highly trained staff and specialized trolleys known as gueridon. In the mid-range, one would find typical American restaurants where food is plated in the kitchen and served by a server whose station includes a number of tables. For those establishments at the lower end of the scale, labor costs for service tend to be minimal. Establishments near the opposite end of the scale require not only considerable numbers of skilled servers, but also appropriate personnel to prepare and plate food properly. Labor costs would clearly be lower in restaurants in the former category and higher in those in the latter category. So, I mean, if it's a place that have like a vending machine that you can buy pre-cooked food from, then probably just go have a cashier, right? But if it is an establishment where Pier 1, where you have to go sit down and you order and then it's cooked to order, then clearly they would have to hire way more people to offer the kind of service that they're offering to the public. And so their labor costs, would go up. Menu is also another determinant of labor costs. So from the point of view of a manager interested in controlling labor costs, it is less costly to prepare 300 portions of an item than it is to prepare 30 portions each of 10 different items. This is especially true if those 10 items require several types of preparation, such as braising, broiling, baking, roasting, and boiling. This is because one employee could conceivably prepare all 300 portions of the single item, but the preparation of 10 different items by several different methods would probably require employees in several different job categories, particularly if all portions were needed at one time, as in the case of a banquet. This is one of the primary reasons that many establishments restrict their menus to only a few items. In the case of some fast food operations, the menu may even be structured around one basic entree, the hamburger. Clearly, Limiting the numbers and varieties of menu items is a factor of considerable importance in the control of labor costs. So it depends on what you're offering on your menu at your restaurant that can determine how high or low your labor cost is. Because if you're offering the item that you're offering requires the same probably kind of preparation, then you probably can have one to do it. But if you have like 3, 4, 5 different items that require different methods of preparation, then you'll have to hire more staff. And if you hire more staff, it simply means that your labor cost is going to be increased. All right. So let us look at hours of preparation, which is also a determinant of labor cost. So the number of hours that a restaurant operates will have a significant impact on labor cost. A restaurant open only for dinner will have lower labor costs than the same operation open for 3 meals each day. However, decisions concerning number of hours of operation involve more considerations than the mere cost of labor. Every operation has overhead costs that exist regardless of whether the restaurant is open or closed. These typically include rent or mortgage payments, salaries not based on hours of work, such as managers' salaries, insurance premiums, depreciation, property taxes, and so on. These fixed costs are independent of business value. As a general rule, as long as additional revenue gained by staying open is greater than the additional cost incurred during that period of time, remaining open is desirable from a financial viewpoint. So basically, sometimes a restaurant may be faced with a decision as, okay, should we open a little bit later? And you'll have to decide how beneficial it is for you to open. Because remember, whether the restaurant open or closed, you still have to pay rent, you still have to pay light, you still have to pay the water bill, you still have to pay the manager, you still have to pay your property tax, you still have to pay your insurance premium. Those costs are fixed and they are not dependent on business activities. So it doesn't matter if you open or close, those costs are being incurred. So let us look at an example. And so we come now to the break-even calculation that you see on the screen. So assume that a restaurant is trying to determine whether to extend dinner hours from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Additional wages for that hour would be $22,200. Heat and light are estimated at $1,650. These additional costs can be considered fixed once the decision to remain open for the extra hour is made. Variable costs, including food, beverages, linen, and miscellaneous, are estimated at 38% of each dollar of sale. Thus, we use the break-even formula. So next week, we're going to discuss break-even analysis in detail, but I'm just using it in this example to explain hours of operation as a determinant of cost.
Sir, next week is Easter Monday, sir.
Oh, next week is so the other week. The other week.
Okay, sir.
I totally missed that. I didn't realize next week was Easter Monday. Oh wow. I have to look back at the timetable.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not. It's a, this curfew thing is throwing me way off my game.
Yeah, because next week the curfew is much earlier, I think.
I wasn't even paying attention to it because yesterday I found myself. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna get something to eat, and then I'm like, but everywhere lock.
That happened to me on Saturday, sir. Saturday, I said, because I was working, I said, all right, I'm gonna pay some bills. When I went to South, everywhere locked down from 12 o'clock.
Yeah, when I was coming home from work in the morning, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stop at the supermarket and buy some stuff at the convenience. The gas station them always have some.
Yes.
So I'm like, I'm gonna buy some stuff. And I saw everywhere chained up, and I'm like, what the hell is
Yeah.
going on? Realize that the
Nowhere
place
open
locked.
Sunday. Nowhere
This
open.
is
My
just
God.
ridiculous. And then the police in the pony road that tell people to come out for the road.
Yes. 'Cause when we were going home Saturday night, right on the bridge, on the
Mm-hmm.
beach road, we spent at least maybe an hour in the line.
Wow.
And they have to check every vehicle
Is
and they
that
have
is,
to ask you a lot of questions. And you have to show your ID and things.
oh boy. It's the new world that we're living in, my dear.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let us look at this little example here now. So um the fixed cost would be the $22,200 plus the 1,650, and that comes to $23,800. Now the formula is fixed cost over the contribution rate, and the contribution rate is equal to 1 minus the variable rate. Now the variable rate here is 38% because we said that variable cost including food, beverage, linen, miscellaneous expenses are estimated at 38% of each dollar of sale. Right, so it will be the 23,850 divided by 1 minus 0.38, and that would give you 0.62. And so it's 23,850 divided by 0.62, which would give you, so if you can make $38,467.74, that means that you would have covered your fixed cost. So if management can project sales volume in excess, obviously you want to make more and not break even because you're deciding, should I open until 10 o'clock? Should I extend my opening hours for an additional hour? And I'm trying to see how beneficial this is to me. So if management can project sales volume in excess of $38,467.74, it would be financially advantageous to remain open. So let us assume that they can make $52,500 for the additional hour that they're going to open. The cost for that period would include the $23,850 previously cited, plus 38% of the 52,500, which is 19,950. So the total cost for the additional hour at the projected sales level would be 43,800, leaving a net revenue. Do I have that? Let me see. Leaving a net revenue of $8,700 that would be available to cover overhead costs for the restaurant and additional profit. Management must decide whether the additional $8,700 in net revenue is worth the time and effort required to stay open for the additional hours. Employee morale and long-term effects and overall sales volume must also be considered. So you can just look at, okay, I can make more money for extending the opening hours by 1 hour, and just look at the money as the only factor to make your decision. You have to look at other factors as well. So weather is also a determinant of labor cost. Of all the determinants of cost, weather is clearly one that is completely beyond any manager's control, but it can have a significant impact on labor cost percentages. How? Weather often affects sales volume, which in turn affects staffing levels in the food service industry. Bad weather, such as heavy rain or flooding, deters potential customers from venturing out to restaurants. Interestingly, identical weather conditions typically increase sales volume in hotel dining rooms for the very same reason. Those who may have gone out to other restaurants remain in the hotel to avoid the weather. To the extent that one can obtain accurate weather forecasts, one can plan staffing levels suitably for anticipated demand. The problem is that weather forecasts are not always accurate, and unforeseen weather changes may render planning staff levels inappropriate. When this occurs, it is often too late to modify the employee schedule. Sometimes employees can be sent home early if the restaurant is overstaffed. Although this may have a negative impact on employee morale, labor turnover, and performance. Another determinant of labor cost is competent management. So the cost of labor is always affected by management's ability to plan, organize, direct, control, and lead the organization in such a way that the desired level of employee performance is obtained at the appropriate level of cost. Competent management requires, among other things, managers have clear conceptions of important elements of the work at hand, including the nature of the work to be done, the number and types of employees required to do it, the measurement of suitable performance, the scheduling of employees to optimize performance levels, the training, facilities, equipment, and other materials required, and how, when, and in what quantities these resources are to be utilized. The manager's ability to motivate, direct, and lead will determine the quality of work and the level of performance. This may be summed up by saying that good management will have positive effects on labor costs, whereas poor management will have negative effects. A good manager, merely by being a good manager, will create a work environment conducive to optimal performance at minimal costs. So we're moving on to labor cost control. So labor cost control is an attempt to obtain maximum efficiency from staff without compromising standards of operating performance. Labor cost control is a significant part of labor control. It is a process used by managers to direct, regulate, and restrain employees' actions in order to obtain desired levels of performance at appropriate levels of cost. To the inexperienced owner or manager, labor cost control is sometimes mistaken as the mere reduction of payroll costs to their irreducible minimum. This can be achieved by employing a bare minimum number of people paid the minimum legal wage. But there is much more to labor cost control than just minimizing dollar wages, a fact sometimes ignored by owners and managers who take the short-term view of operations, thinking only to immediate profits and not taking into account the long-term effects of their policies and actions. Short-term policies geared strictly to minimize immediate costs may have undesirable long-term effects, including decreased dollar sales, increased operating costs, and even business failure. For example, hiring a full staff of employees at minimum wage may minimize immediate labor costs, but lead to poor quality products, high labor turnover, customer dissatisfaction, decreasing sales volume, and a host of other long-term problems. Obviously, management should pay the wage rates necessary to attract and retain qualified personnel, but not more. To overpay may make for an operation that cannot be profitable. Appropriate performance levels differ from establishment to establishment. For some, portioned products that need only to be eaten and served For some, desired levels of performance may be such that minimum wage employees are appropriate. For others, appropriate levels of performance may be such that wages considerably above those prevailing in the area may be required. But the level of performance is not simply a function of wage rates. Unskilled employees in fast food establishments cannot perform at appropriate levels unless they are provided with appropriate equipment, given suitable training, placed in a working environment conducive to getting work done, and supervised in a manner that will inspire them to work and remain on the staff. This is also true for highly skilled employees in the finest restaurant. Suitable wage levels do not guarantee appropriate performance. Many other factors are involved in ensuring suitable levels of performance. The purpose of labor control. So the primary purpose of labor cost control is to maximize the efficiency of the labor force in a manner consistent with the established standards of quality and service. Ideally, each employee's service will be utilized as effectively as possible. There should be a significant number of dishwashers working to ensure that dishes are washed as efficiently as possible. But there should be no time when dishwashers stand around with no work to do. Similarly, a sufficient number of servers should ensure that all customers are served as quickly as possible while standards of services are maintained. But at no time should there be more than a sufficient number of servers to serve customers in the restaurant. All right, so let us look at an example to calculate labor costs. So calculate gross wages, total deductions, and net pay for each of the following employees of Sakura Restaurant. Assume a 40-hour work week with hours worked over 40 hours, which is overtime wage, calculated at 1.5 times regular wages. Deductions for the wages are as follows. So you have NIS, the employee pays 3%, the employer pays 3%, and that is calculated on the employee's gross pay. You have NHT, that is calculated at 2% for the employee and 3% for the employer, and that is calculated on the employee's gross pay. You have PAYE, which is 25% of the employee's statutory income less the income tax threshold. The employer doesn't pay PAYE. You have education tax, which is 2.5% of the employee's statutory income, and the employer will pay 3.5%. Then you have HRACC contribution. Employees don't pay HRACC contributions, but the employer will pay 3%. I get this wrong. 3% of the gross taxable payroll if the payroll costs exceed 173,380. I think I did the calculations right here. Okay. All right. So this is how the employees are paid. So you have Nicholas, Charmaine, Yannick, Gary, and Seneca. And the hours worked, Nicholas worked 46 hours at $1,170 per hour. Charmaine worked 55 hours at $1,240 per hour. Yannick worked 43 hours at $1,430 per hour. Gary worked 49 hours at $1,760 per hour. And Seneca worked 57 hours at $1,840 per hour. Right? And you are required to calculate the gross wages, the total deductions, and the net pay for each of the employees. So let us look at Nicholas first. All right, so the regular hours is 40, and that is 40 at $1,170 should give you 46,600, right? And so the overtime is 6 hours because it's a 40-hour work week. And so that would be 6 hours times 1,140 times 1.5.
40 by how much, sir?
Remember,
40.
overtime is paid at time and a half. So you'd have
No,
to time.
at first he had what? 40 hours and the rate was what?
The rate is 1,100. You can write it off. Just write them off first so we can. So you just write them off. So when you finish, write them off. Let me.
All right. Hold on. Okay. So Nick is 46 hours. And the rate is 170.
Hard to support.
40. That means 43. 140. All right, sir, go ahead now.
All right, so the first one we have is Nicholas, right?
Yes, so it's 40 times.
So it's
1170.
So the basic wage would be 40 hours at $1,170.
And that is
46,600.
It's
And
800,
then,
sir. It's 46,800. Hours at 1170 is 46.
No, man, it's 1170.
Yeah,
So
11. Yes,
what I have 600.
it's 180. It's it's not correct, sir.
Oh, sorry. I rounded it up. Sorry, my bad.
180.
All right, so it's 46,800.
800, right?
I changed the number, and then now you would have to times the 1,170 by 1.5, and then times that by the 6 hours of overtime.
1.5.
Yes, because the overtime is at time and a half.
Okay, so
that's $10,530.
Hey, go over that part again, sir.
Overtime is at time and a half.
Yeah, time and a half. And it would be the time and a half
times the hourly rate.
Yes, so it's 117. Is it multiplied by time and a half?
Yes.
Multiplied by 1.5, which is equal to 1755.
And then times that now by the 6 hours overtime.
Okay, times 6, $10,530.
So you're going to add the regular
pay
hour
with
now
that.
with the overtime pay.
Yeah, plus
get the gross pay
46,800, which is equal to $57,330.
So that is the gross pay. Now we need to do the deductions, because it says calculate gross pay, total deduction, and net pay for each employee. So we know, so we have to go take out income tax, NIS, education tax, and NHT, right? Yes. To get the net pay. So the first one that we're gonna take out is NIS. We know that NIS is 3%, right, of gross pay, but it goes up to a maximum.
You're breaking up, sir.
We know that NIS is 3% of gross pay, but it goes up to a maximum of 1. Did I do 1.5 or 1.5 million? I don't think it reached 1.5 divided by 50. Sorry, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3 divided by 52. 3% of 1.5 million divided by 50. So 1 moment. 1.5. 1.5 times 0.03 divided by 50. All right, so the NIS, the maximum, the threshold for NIS is $1.5 million for the year, right? So we can charge the 3% and more than 1.5 million. So that's the cap. So how you're gonna do it now is find 3% of 1.5 million, right?
So
and because the employee is being paid, which is 45,000. And because the employee is being paid on a weekly basis, you're going to divide that by the number of weeks in the year, which is 52 weeks. And that should give you $865.38. You get that?
Still working on it, sir.
Okay, let me know when you get it.
1.5 million, which is 60. That.
No, it's 5 zeros.
It's 5 zeros.
Mhm.
All right. Let me take off. 1.5.
So there's 1.5 times 3% and then divide it by the number of weeks in the year, which is 52. So that should give you $865.38 for NIS.
And then after you say 1.5 divided by the 3%.
No, times the 3%.
Yeah, times the 3% and divide by what? No, sir.
So that should give you 45,000 divided by 52 weeks. So divide by 52
weeks. So that is 865. 38.
Okay, so that's your NIS. Now you need to find the statutory income because remember, PAYE and education tax involves statutory income. So the statutory income would be your gross pay minus NIS minus pension if you have pension. But since you don't have no pension, you're just going to take away.
But sir, pension normally come out before with anything else, right?
That's what I just said.
Okay.
So you would take away the NIS and the pension from the gross pay to find the statutory income. But since the person will pay a pension in this exam, we're only taking out NIS.
NIS, right.
So it's 57,330 minus 865.38. So your statutory income should be 56,464.65. All right, so we need to take out education tax, and education tax is 2.25%. You're going to find 2.25% of that 56,000 464.62.
Yes. So we're going to take 4%.
2.25%.
Divide by 2.25.
No, it's times 2.25%.
So that is $1,270.45. Oh, 12,000. How you answer this now? $1,270.45
For education tax.
for the education tax.
Then we're going to find NHT, and NHT is NHT is 2% of the gross pay. So it's 2% of the $57,330.
All right. So that is $1,146.60.
Yes, and now we are going to find the PAYE, but we need to determine now what is the income tax threshold and take that away from the gross, from the statutory income to find the taxable income. So we know that the minimum wage right now is $1.5 million and 96. Sorry, $1.5 million and 96. So since the person is paid on a weekly basis, you'd have to divide that now by 52 to get the amount that you're going to deduct from the strategy.
Divide the 1.5 million and
$96 by 52 because the person is paid on a week.
96 divided by 52. I'm not sure I write the figure right. So it would be 1.5 and 30 and then 96.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 9, 6. Divide by 52. I'm getting 0.028.
No, yeah. What are you doing? It's $1.5 million and $96 divided by 52. You shouldn't get that.
That's what I'm getting.
You don't have the figures right, or you're doing something wrong, or maybe you're dividing the 52. You're putting the 52 before the million.
No, I'm not putting 96.
The 1.5 is the numerator, the 52 is the denominator.
I'm not getting it. Some of them if I do something wrong.
That's clearly doing something wrong.
1.5. 1, 2, 3. 30 just says, right? 96 and divided by.
I hope you're not putting a point there, you know.
Oh, there I go wrong. It is 28,848.
Okay, so you take that away now from the statutory income to get the taxable income.
And the statutory income was
$56,464.62.
56,000. $28,764.80.
What are you doing? You're taking 28,000 from 56,000.
Come again. 28,000.
Are you writing this stuff out? Because if you
I'm
don't have
writing.
it on the, yeah, so what was the statutory income that you have on your paper?
It was $114.60.
No. The statutory income, remember the statutory income is the gross pay minus the NIS amount. And the gross pay we said was $57,330. And you take away the NIS from it, and the NIS
which is $58,865.38.
So the gross pay was so the statutory income was $56,464.62.
56,490.
No, 56,464.62.
$56,490 minus in 56,409.62 minus 865.38. $4,784.24.
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking.
You are
taking away the income tax threshold from your statutory income. No, from your statutory income. We are trying to find out what portion of the employee's pay we should charge the 25% on. And I said before that the PAYE is statutory income minus the income tax threshold. We just calculated the income tax threshold to be $28,848. So we have already calculated the statutory income, so you should be writing that down. If you have the statutory income,
I have the $28,848.
That's not the statutory income, that's the income tax threshold.
Yes.
So what is the statutory income that we calculated? It was the gross pay minus the NIS, which gave us $56,464.62. So that's what you need to take away the $28,848 from.
$28,000 from.
Yes, to get the taxable income.
Okay, so it's 56,498.62 minus the 28.
Where you get 98.62 from?
It's $56,496.62.
No. It's $64,464.62.
$64,962. Let me get that from, sir.
But you need to lay it out in your book, you know, so because we just did this calculation, so I'm not sure why we stuck here. We literally just did the calculation, so you need to be writing it out. So
I'm writing, but sir, I don't know when we get that a while ago, and me write everything come down. We write the NIS.
What do you have as statutory income?
The 114, 100, what? What am I pronounce? $1,146.60.
That is NHT. That is for NHT deduction, not statutory. That statutory income is. Okay. I just told you what the statutory income is. The gross pay minus the NIS. We calculated gross pay to be $57,330.
Yes,
and we took away 8 years. So that's just do that now and tell me what the amount is. Because we just did that.
So I have the NIS for 865.38. And I have the education tax. So
we're not talking about education tax. We're talking about statutory income. Gross pay minus NIS. That's all you need to focus on, right?
Okay, gross pay.
What is the gross pay that you have?
Is it 64.96? Army last, sir. Which button?
Can I see what you have? Show this thing that what you have. Because you.
Oh, how do I go? Hold on a second, sir. How do I?
Just put the camera on whatever it is that you're writing.
I'm only
seeing. Or hold it up to the camera. I can see you. Or hold it up to the camera.
See what I'm writing, sir?
You now hold it up to the camera. Hold on. Let me let me bring up your screen. Put it back. Put it back.
I write in short. Are you saying it, sir?
So, but you don't have the put it up back. Put it up back.
I'm calculating for Nick, so I have Nick up here.
No, but hold it up seconds. I need to see it. Okay, but yeah, so that's 64. That hold on, go back. That 56,400. That's the one that we're talking about. So you have it as $56,496.62.
Yes, sir. That.
So that's what you need to take away the $28,848 from.
Okay. Okay, sir.
So that's but that means how long now. That's what I'm being said all this time.
Sir. All right, sir.
So just take away now the 28,848 from it.
96.62 minus the 28,000, you said, sir, right?
28,848.
848. And that leaves 27,648.62.
No, man, that should give you $27,616.62.
You sure, sir? Can we proceed? 56.
464.62 minus 28,848. Yeah, it's $27,616.62.
62 minus 28,848.
What do you get?
I get it, sir. I get 25, 6, 4, 9, 6.
It's not 9.6. Where you get 9.6 from? It's 6.4. So it's 56,400 464.62. That is the statutory income minus the income tax threshold of $28,848. So that should leave you now with a taxable income of $27,616.62. You get that? Because you have the wrong figure there. The figure is on my screen. See, there is $464.62. So that is the figure that you should have for your statutory income.
Just a minute, sir.
No problem.
Sir.
Yes.
Me let me. I'm working. I'm going to deal with a customer, so I'm just have to listen to you.
All right. So I'll just continue then. Okay. So
that's why I'm in a 400.
okay. So we're finding now 25% of that taxable income of $27,616.62. So that should give us $6,904.16. And so the total tax withheld for Nicholas is $10,114.93. And if we take that away from the 50, so that's that I need to change that. From the $57,330, then we would leave with a net pay. You're breaking up. You're breaking up. You're breaking up, Charmaine. Something is wrong. 170. How did I get that so wrong? That's why. All right. So Nicholas's gross pay is $47,143.41. I will move on to Charmaine now. Remember, Charmaine worked 55 hours, and the standard work week is 40 hours. Charmaine's hourly rate at basic is $1,240. So it will be 40 times 1,240, which would give you a basic pay of $49,600. Then the remaining 15 hours would be charged at time and a half. So that's 1,240 times 1.5, which would give you overtime rate of $1,860, and you times that by the 15 extra hours that Charmaine worked, so the overtime pay would be $27,900. So you add the 27,900 plus the 49,600, and that should give you a gross pay of $75,500. We had already worked out that the NIS is $865.38. So we're going to take the 865.38 away from the 77,500 to get the statutory income. And so the statutory income is $76,634.62. And we are going to find the education tax, which is charged on the statutory income, and education tax is 2.25%. So it's 2.25% of $76,634.62. And that gives you $1,724.38. Sorry. Then we're going to find NHT, and NHT is 2% of the gross pay. So it's just 2% of that 77,500, right? Then we're going to find PAYE. We do the same thing again. So we're going to take the 28,840, because we don't work it out already, so we don't have to do it again, of the minimum wage threshold from the statutory income of $76,634.62 to get a taxable income, of $47,786.62. And then now we find 25% of this $47,786.62, and that should give us an income tax of $11,946.66. Now we add up all the taxes to get total tax now for Charmaine is $16,086.31, and that would make her net pay, which is the $16,086.31 minus the $77,500, gives you $61,413.93. Yes, and so we do that.
Not 93, 68 cents.
It's 69 cents, man, because it's 31. Yeah. It's 16,086.31, so it couldn't be 30. It has to be 30. 39. All right, so we move to Yannick, and Yannick worked 43 hours at an hourly rate of $1,430. Now, remember the standard work week again is 40 hours. So it would be $1,430 times the standard 40 hours, which is $57,200. And then now the remaining 3 hours we're going to times and a half. So it's $1,430 times 1.5, which gives us $2,145 as the overtime hourly rate. And we times the 3 extra hours overtime by that $2,145 to get $6,435. We added that $6,435 to the $57,200 to get a gross pay of $63,635. So we're going to find the statutory income now. Remember, we don't work out what the NIS was, and that amount was $865.38. So all we need to do is to take away that amount from the gross pay of $63,635, and we end up with a statutory income of $62,769.62. We can go ahead now and find the education tax because we now derive the statutory income, and that is nearly 2.25% of the $62,769.62, and that should give us an education tax of $1,412.32. We can find NHT, which is 2% of the gross pay. So it's 2% of $63,635, and that gives you $1,272.70. We now want to find what the income tax is. Remember, we found the statutory income of $62,769.62. We already worked out what the minimum wage threshold for the week is, and that's $28,848. So all we need to do now is to take away the $28,848 from the statutory income of $62,769.62 to get the taxable income. And the taxable income would be $33,921.62. Then we just find 25% of the taxable income of $33,921.62, and that should give us an income tax now of $8,480.41. So when we add all the deductions, Yannick's deductions came to $12,030.80. We take away the total deductions from the gross pay of $63,635, and Yannick's net pay is now $51,604.20. We move on to Gary. So Gary worked 49 hours. We're going to charge the first 40 hours at the standard rate. His hourly rate was $1,760. So that's 40 times 1,760. And that gives us a basic pay of $70,400. Then for the overtime rate, it's time and a half. So it's the basic rate of 1,760 times 1.5, which gives us $2,640. And so we multiply the remaining 9 hours work by that 2,640 to get an overtime pay of $23,760. So we had the basic pay of $70,400 to the overtime pay of $23,760 to get a gross pay of $94,160. So the first thing that we're going to do after this is to find what the statutory income is. Statutory income is gross pay minus NIS minus pension. In this case, Gary is not paying any pension, so we're just going to take away the NIS from it. And we already worked out that the NIS was $865.38. So the 94,160 minus the NIS of $865.38 gives us a statutory income of $93,294.62. Immediately, we can go ahead now and do the education tax, which is 2.25% of the statutory income. And so that's 2.25% of $93,294.62 gives us an education tax of $2,000 and $99.13. We can also find NHT, which is 2% of the gross pay, and that's 2% of $94,106, gives us a total NHT of $1,883.20. So the last thing that we have to do now is to find the income tax. Now, income tax is derived by taking away the income tax threshold from the statutory income. Remember, we already worked out what the income tax threshold was for the week, and that's $28,848. So all we need to do now is to minus the $28,848 income tax threshold from the statutory income of $93,294.62 to derive a taxable income of $64,446.62. Then we're going to find 25% of that. So it's 25% of $64,446.62 to give us an income tax of $16,111.66. So Gary's total deductions would be $20,559.36. We take that away from his gross pay of $94,106 to get a net pay of $73,264. We move on to Seneca, and Seneca worked. I have 50. Wait. Oh, it's 57. Okay, let's go back. 7 and 55. Okay. So Seneca worked 57 hours for that week at a basic rate of $1,840 per hour. So we're gonna take the first 40 hours at the base rate, which is 40 times 1,840, gives us a basic pay of $73,600. Then we're going to calculate the overtime pay, which is times and a half by the 1,840 basic rate, gives us $2,760 for the overtime hourly rate. So the remaining 17 hours is calculated at $2,760, and that gives us overtime pay of $46,920. And we add the $46,920 to the $73,600 to get a gross pay of $120,520. Sorry. And so we can now find the NHT, which is 2% of that 120,520, which gives us an NHT of $2,410.40. We can now derive the statutory income. We already worked out what the NIS was, which is $865.38. So we just take that away from the gross pay of $125.20 to get a statutory income of $119,654.62. And that gives us income tax. Sorry, and so to find out the education tax, we take 2% of that statutory income of $119,654.62 to get education tax of $2,692.23. Last one to find is the income tax, and that is basically the income tax threshold of $28,848, which we had worked out earlier. From the statutory income of $119,654.62 gives us a taxable income of $90,806.62, and you find 25% of that $90,806.62 for your income tax, which is $22,701.66. That makes the total tax withheld for Seneca to be $28,669.66. You take that away from the gross pay of $120,520 to get a net pay of $91,850.34. And so the total payroll cost for these employees would be $412,900. You will have to pay over $87,861.07 out of their pay to the government, and the employees will actually get $325,038.93 in their bank accounts. All right. I added some other calculations to it. So I showed the employer's tax. I said gross taxable payroll. So it's correct. All right. So I showed how much the employer would pay in payroll, you know, what their contribution is. NIS is 3%, education tax is 3.5%, NHT is 3%, and HART is 3%. And that is of the employees' gross pay. All right. And so this is your payroll cost for this one employee. So even though you technically paid the employee $91,834, your overall payroll cost is $135,554.71 for that specific employee, because you had to pay NIS as well, education tax, HART, and NHT as well on their behalf. So this doesn't include the amount that they paid, just your portion of the tax that you have to pay, because this is in addition to. So these amounts are in addition to the $91,850.34 that you have to pay the employee. All right. So there was another part to the question. It says, so the restaurant currently accepts dinner reservations up to 8 p.m. each night. Recently, there have been requests for dinner reservations as late as 9 p.m. Given the following information, calculate the needed revenue for the restaurant to break even if they should stay open the additional hour. So we want to figure out if the restaurant should stay open an additional hour, what revenue them supposed to make that decision. All right, so there's some information to consider. Additional fixed cost to remain open one extra hour is $24,000, and this includes heat, light, power, as well as food and beverage costs. Variable cost percentage is 5.44%, and profit is 10%. So the payroll cost here now, right? So each employee would work one additional hour, right? And the overtime rate, this one is wrong, but let's work with it. because I had 1,165 instead of 1,107. Anyway, so it would be the overtime rate, right, that we're going to be paying them, and this is the overtime rate. The overtime rate and the gross pay would be the same because they're working one extra hour. Now, the payroll cost here is the cost to you, the employer, for having those employees that one extra hour. The payroll cost is 12.5%. When we get 12.5% from. All right, so if we go back to the taxes, so you have NIS of 3%, NHG of 3%, education tax of 3.5%, and HART of 3%. So when you add all of those, the 3% plus 3% plus 3.5% plus 3% gives you 12.5%. So that is how we get the 12.5%. So you're gonna times now, you're gonna find 12.5% of the hourly pay, which is $1,747.50 for Nicholas, and that would give you $218.44, and that is how much you would pay in cost for Nicholas. And then you add that to the pay to get you the total amount that you are going to be paying. Then you do the same thing for the others. So the 1860 times 12.5%, that gives you $232.50, and you add that to the 1860, that gives you $2,092.50. Then you do the same thing for Yannick, 12.5% of 2,145, give you $268.13. Add that back to the 2,145, so gives you $2,413.13. For Gary, it's 12.5% of 2,640, gives you 330. Add the 330 to the 2,640, and that gives you 2,970. For Seneca, you find 12.5% of the 2,760 to get $345. You add that to the 2,760 to get 3,140. And so your total payroll cost will be $12,546.70. Now, this is how it looks on the spreadsheet, what I was doing before. All right, so we went through this already, so I'm not going to go through that. I did the breakdown of the payroll taxes. I won't go through that right now. All right, so the amount of revenue the restaurant needs to generate in order to break even, if it chooses to stay open and one extra hour. So it would be the payroll expense, which we just worked out to be $12,546.07, plus the overhead that was $24,000, gives you $36,546.10. This is how much the restaurant would need to make in order to break even. But we don't want to open one extra hour and make no money. So the break-even revenue, remember now we had the variable cost, right? So it would be fixed cost, which we just worked out to be 36,546.07 over the contribution rate, which is equal to 1 minus the variable rate. The variable rate was 5.44. So it's 1 minus 0.0544 gives you 0.9456. You divide that by the 36,546.07, and that gives you a break-even revenue in dollars of $38,648, and 55 cents. And this is how much you would need to make in revenue dollars to break even. But we need a profit of 10%, right? So if Sakura restaurant can project sales value in excess of this $38,648.55, then it can consider opening until 9 p.m. The ideal sales volume would be, and there's another formula, right? So remember you want the 10% profit. So the sales revenue needed for profit would be the fixed cost plus the variable cost times 1 plus profit. Now, the reason why I put 1 there is because you need the full revenue and not just profit amount. If I had just P there, you would just get what the profit would be and not what the total sales amount. So that would be the fixed cost of $36,546 $546.07 plus the variable cost of $2,102.48. Let me get this at $2,102.48. I remember we find fixed cost first, right? So and we arrived at the total cost now, which include fixed plus variable cost. So all I need to do now is take away the $36,546.07 from the 38,000, the total cost, right? Because total cost minus fixed cost will give you variable cost. And so that is how I got this $2,102.48 times that by 1.1 to give you the sales. So this $42,513.41 is the total. All right, is the, hold on. Oops. Is the sales revenue in dollars. Sales revenue in dollars, right? Okay. And I'm just showing you now what the profit would be. So the profit would be sales minus total cost. And that would be sales of $42,513.41 minus the total cost of $38,648.55, which gives you $3,864.56. And if you remove the 1 here, you will get that. If you remove the 1 from this equation, if fixed cost plus variable cost times profit would give you times the profit percentage, sorry, would give you the $3,864.56. Sorry, where am I? Sales revenue. Okay. All right. So, thus sales volume of 42,513.41 for the additional hour. So that is how much you would need to be making in order to accept the decision to stay open for the extra hour. Costs for that period would include the $36,546.07 in fixed cost plus 5.4% of the $42,513.41 or $2,312.73. Total cost for the additional hour at the projected sales level would be $38,858.80, leaving a net revenue of $3,654.61, which is 42,513.41 minus the 38,858.8. Management must decide whether the additional $3,654.41 and 61 cents of net revenue is worth the time and effort required. Employee morale and long-term effects on overall sales volume must also be considered. All right, so we are at establishing performance standards. Standards are defined as rules or measures established for making comparisons or judgments. Management establishes standards for many reasons, one of which is to determine the extent to which the results of organizational activities match those anticipated by plans. Now, it is important to discuss using standards of evaluating employee performance and controlling costs. There are three kinds of standards used in cost control. One is quality, two is quantity, and three is cost. Quality standards. Before developing standards for employees' performance, a manager must first have a clear and detailed understanding of the establishment, including the quality standards for food and beverage products. Obviously, the food and beverage standards differ in restaurants. Some restaurants serve food that comes prepackaged or in cans, and preparation involves only heating, broiling, sauteing, or frying. The standards for food quality in these restaurants are not as high as those in a restaurant that uses few convenience foods, uses fresh vegetables, prepares its own sauces, and does its own butchering and so on. With the standards for food preparation clearly in mind, a manager can then begin to establish quality standards for employee performance. For example, the standards for employee performance in a diner are considerably different than in a fine dining establishment. Diners typically serve a variety of wholesome food in an informal setting, catering to customers looking for a wide variety of relatively plain food, ranging from breakfast items to sandwiches to dinner items. Employee must be allowed to follow standard recipes and provide fast service. A fine dining establishment, by contrast, caters to guests looking for superior quality food in an unobtrusive atmosphere. Employees must be highly trained, and their knowledge of food and food preparation and service must be greater than that of diner employees. The quality standards of employee performance in a diner need not be as exacting as those in a fine dining establishment. As an illustration, standards for serving sandwiches typically do not require the same polished service as that appropriate for serving steak in a fine dining establishment. Those serving sandwiches typically need only be cordial and put the food in front of the customers within a reasonable amount of time. Those serving steak require a greater degree of knowledge about the food itself and about service procedures. In the food service business, production must be linked to immediate demands. If a restaurant has 120 customers in a given time period, food is produced for those 120 people. If during the next time period only 50 customers are in the restaurant, food is produced only for those 50 people. We do not normally prepare most food today for sale in the next day, week, or month, except to the extent that it can be frozen or otherwise preserved for service at a later time. A time and motion study can be used to determine appropriate techniques that a cook may use to make, for example, omelets of acceptable quality at peak efficiency for 1 hour. Such a study may result in a determination that the cook can produce 30 omelets per hour by following certain carefully specified procedures. However, this would be of little use unless the cook actually had to produce 30 omelets per hour for each hour of work. Generally, this is not the case. Thus, industrial approaches have not been widely applied in food and beverage operations. Establishing standards and procedures for employees require 3 steps: organizing the enterprise, preparing job descriptions, and scheduling employees. Organizing the enterprise. Few activities designed ultimately to control labor costs can be undertaken sensibly until management has devoted appropriate time, thought, and energy to organizing the operation, establishing jobs, and identifying the relationships between them. Organizing an enterprise properly normally requires that one design a rational organizational plan. Establishing an organizational plan. Establishing an organizational plan requires the owner or manager to first develop a clear picture of the nature of the operation. This includes the types of clientele, the nature of the products offered, and the extent and type of service rendered. As discussed earlier in this lesson. In addition, it should include some reasonable estimate of the number of meals to be prepared and served. Once the owner or manager has developed this basic idea of the nature and scope of the operation, he or she can begin to think in terms of specific jobs that must be performed. As an illustration, consider a very small establishment serving fast food from a limited menu and offering counter service rather than table service. The manager can order a comparatively small selection of frozen, proportioned foods and oversee the simple preparation of these items by a smaller number of cooks of limited ability, who can also serve as counter help. If the service were plates, cups, and so on were all disposable paper and plastic, the services of a dishwasher might not be needed. And if the manager was able to work the cash register, no cashier would be needed. The restaurant could exist with only 2 categories of employee: manager and a cook or a counter worker. With that understanding clearly in mind, the manager can begin to think of hiring staff. In contrast, a large restaurant offering continental cuisine prepared from fresh ingredients by highly skilled kitchen personnel and served by a highly professional dining room staff would require a comparatively larger staff complement. The kitchen staff would include several types of skilled professionals, carefully trained in the arts of butchering meats, preparing soups and sauces, decorating cold platters, and doing other jobs appropriate to such a restaurant. Typically, one individual could not attend to managing such an enterprise while covering one of the workstations, example, that of a cashier. To operate this type of establishment successfully requires the services of specialists, including receiving clerks, stewards, storeroom clerks, hosts, cashiers, and many others. Preparing the job description. So job description is a formal definition of a job, which typically includes a summary of the work to be done and a list of specific tasks and duties. Job analysis is the process of identifying the nature of a job as well as the skills, level of education, and other specific qualifications needed to perform the job. It is the first step in preparing a job description. Now, organizing an enterprise is much more complex than simply listing the various job titles commonly used in food or beverage operations and determining the number of workers needed in each position. Instead, it requires that one identify the nature of each job as well as the skills, the level of education, and other specific qualifications needed to perform it. For example, planning for personnel in the kitchen of a restaurant is more complicated than simply determining that there will be one fry cook on duty for every 8-hour shift every day of the week. One must also know and understand the nature of the fry cook's job in the specific restaurant, the specific duties assigned to that job, the skills required to carry out these duties, and any other qualifications or attributes that an individual holding the job should possess or demonstrate. Job analysis is the first step in preparing job descriptions. The information necessary to complete job analysis may be gathered in any of several ways. In new food and beverage operations, the information tends to be based on the manager's previous experience in the industry. In existing operations, the two most common methods are interviewing workers and supervisors to obtain the information and observing workers on site as they perform the job. Complete analysis requires effective use of both methods. One approach is to conduct an in-depth interview with workers and supervisors during the course of a normal workday. These interviews are typically conducted on premises in a reasonable, quiet area, somewhat removed from the actual work site. In some instances, there are videotaped to facilitate review. Each interview is carefully structured to elicit the specific information required for the job analysis. Later, interviewers will observe both workers and supervisors taking extensive notes to supplement those taken during the interviews. The interviews and observations are designed to provide information on the following. 1, the job objectives. 2, the specific tasks required to achieve the objectives. 3, performance standards. 4, knowledge and skills necessary. And 5, education and experience required. In addition to the information gathered through interviews and observations, the manager must have thorough knowledge of the standards and standard procedures established for the purchasing, receiving, storing, issuing, preparing, selling, and serving of all menu items, food and beverages. Now, in analyzing jobs to determine the nature and extent of skills needed for such job as cook and bartender, it is important to take into account the need for individuals in those jobs to be able to read and follow the standard recipes developed. Unless job analysis is thorough, any resulting job description or job specification will not be adequately indicate the specific duties of a job and qualifications required to perform it. If job analysis does not uncover a need for reading and following standard recipes, the job description and job specification resulting from the policy analysis will not accurately reflect the real duties of the job and the qualifications needed by the job holder. The information gathered in job analysis is reported in the form of job descriptions used for informing employees for their duties and for developing training plans, and job specifications used for making employment decisions. All right, let's look at writing the job description. You see a sample of a job description on the screen. All right, so job descriptions should answer 3 important questions. 1, what is to be done? 2, when is it to be done? And 3, where is it done? A growing number of experts in the field of human resources development advocate including performance criteria in job descriptions. Performance criteria are statements that describe an acceptable level of job performance. Included in performance criteria are standards of job performance that should be known and understood by each job holder, because each is likely to be evaluated on the basis of these standards anyway. For example, if the job description of a server includes a statement such as, quote, customers are greeted and dealt with in a polite and helpful manner at all times, end quote, then there is a standard established that can be used as a basis of evaluating the server's behavior towards customers. A job description has 3 parts. 1, a heading that states the job title and the department in which the job is located. So if you notice, there I have job description, server, Sakura restaurant, and the supervisor is the dining room manager, and the job title is server. So in some organizations, the heading may include such information as the number of positions with that particular job title, the specific hours, days or shifts worked by those with the job title, and the supervisor to whom those with that job title report. So if you notice, the working hours on that job description is from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Number two, a summary of the duties of the job, typically written in a paragraph form. This summary enables the reader to quickly gain some basic understanding of the nature and purpose of the particular job. By reading the summaries of all the jobs in a particular department, one can obtain a great deal of information about the department in a very short time. This can be of great benefit to a new manager, for example. So if you notice the job summary there, servers greet guests, take food and beverage orders, serve food and drinks, present checks with last service, collect cash or process credit for customers, and clear and reset tables. Number three, you have a list of the specific duties assigned to the job. So these will be as detailed as possible, to the point that well-written job description can be used as a step-by-step instruction for doing the specific work required of those holding these jobs. So as you can see here, I have the duties listed in this job description. A job description is particularly important for prospective employees. If they have access to detailed job descriptions of the duties assigned to particular jobs, job applicants and newly hired workers have a means of knowing the work that is to be done by someone holding a particular job. Job descriptions are also very important for employers. They enable employers to hold employees accountable for doing the specific work assigned to a particular job. Employees who have read job descriptions but fail to perform their assigned work cannot successfully use the age-old excuse, "Nobody ever told me I had to do this." Job analysis and the resulting job descriptions have the added benefit of forcing managers to assign specific work to each job holder. If all the normal duties of a department are identified within specific job description, the department will be more organized and will operate more smoothly. And so figure LC 2.0 is written for a server at the Sakura restaurant and is an example of the kind of job description that one may find in a food service enterprise. Know that the degree of specific detail provided. Job descriptions that include this level of detail can be of great assistance to those responsible for developing employee training support. So if you notice, I even have the dress code for males and females. So we have males should be clean shaven. If them wear a mustache, it must be neat and trimmed. No facial hair or hair jewelry, and the hair cannot extend beyond their shirt collar. For females, no excessive jewelry or makeup or perfume. Long hair must be in a hairnet and no long fingernails. Obviously, for any restaurant enterprise, they don't generally allow anybody to wear long fingernails because you know that is a health concern. All right, so job specification. A job specification outlines the qualifications needed to perform a job. It is a second outcome of job analysis. A job specification describes the specific skills needed for a given job and the kinds and levels of education and experience required. The job specification is an important standard that can and should be used by anyone assigned to interviewing applicants for employment and judging their suitability for particular jobs. Job specifications typically include minimum qualifications that are used to determine which applicants have the qualifications needed to fill particular positions and which do not. Applicants who possess the qualifications indicated in the job specification are normally deemed suitable for further consideration. Those who lack the listed qualifications are not. We're moving on to standard work hours. So before attempting to describe an approach to improving labor efficiency, it is necessary to introduce another way of looking at standards for labor productivity. Here, consider standard work hours, the number of employee work hours required to perform a given volume of work. The term is normally related to the work of those in specific job categories, such as servers, dishwashers, or cooks. If, for example, 8 servers are needed to serve 500 covers in a 3-hour lunchtime period, then the standard work hours required for the servers are calculated as follows. 8 servers times 3 hours equal 24 work hours. Now, the 24 work hours would become the standard for serving 500 covers over a lunchtime period. Given a forecast of 500 covers, the scheduling of any number of servers' work hours in excess of 24 would be an indication of poor scheduling. Fewer than 24 would also be an indication of poor scheduling and would further suggest that unsatisfactory level of service quality will be provided to customers. Varying numbers of standard work hours should be established for varying levels of sales volume, and it is management's responsibility to establish these standards. The number of standard work hours required does not necessarily vary directly with changes in the volume of business. In the previous example, 24 work hours for servers was the standard for 500 covers during the lunchtime period. For the 3-hour time period, this was 20.83 covers per standard work hour. At a lower level of sales volume, example 300 covers, 6 servers equaling 18 standard work hours may be established as the standard. This is 16.7 covers per standard work hour. It's suggesting less efficiency than that at the higher volume level. The high levels of efficiency are more difficult to achieve at lower volume level. By employing the techniques previously discussed, management can develop tables of standard work hours for all job categories at previous levels of business activity. I'm going to now show you a table. So, table LC 2.1 illustrates a table of standard work hours for variable cost personnel for a particular restaurant. It illustrates the table of standard work hours, used in conjunction with forecast of sales volume. These figures are helpful both in forecasting work hours required and in scheduling employees as efficiently as possible. For example, assume that the manager of a given restaurant, after referring to the establishment's sales history, has forecasted 500 covers for a given luncheon period. Given that the level of sales value, one can determine from the chart illustrated here on your screen that the standard work hours required for that level of sales as follows. Service personnel would be 24, warewashing personnel would be 12, and preparation personnel would be 12. And so we have it, so for 200 to 299 covers, we would need 15 service personnel, 6 warewashing personnel, and because remember, all of this is a 24 and 9 preparation personnel, and so on. Now, forecasts may be made for each meal or day, depending on the nature of the preparation. Then the number of standard work hours required at those levels of volume would be determined. The standard work hour requirements would form the basis for developing work schedules for employees, following the procedures discussed earlier. Obviously, all of this would be done far enough in advance so that employees would have appropriate notice of their work schedule. But we clearly not going to do this on a daily basis, because people want to know when they might go work so that they can plan their lives around. Because employees have their lives outside of work, and we have to take that into consideration too. Because remember, employee morale plays a big role in service quality and service delivery, and thereby sales value, right? Because if customers are not getting good service at your restaurant, they're not going back. All right, so let us look at standard cost. So The development of standard work hours makes possible development of standard labor costs. This may be done by simply multiplying the number of standard work hours required to perform a given volume of work by the hourly wage paid to those performing the work. For example, assume that servers are paid $600 per hour and those 24 standard work hours are required to serve 500 covers in a 3-hour lunch on period. Standard cost for this can be calculated by multiplying the number of standard work hours by the hourly wage as follows. So 24 hours by 600 per hour is $14,400, and that's your standard cost. Note that standard cost calculated in this way takes only the hourly wage into account and not cost of various payroll taxes and fringe benefits. Thus, the standard cost per server serving 500 covers in a 3-hour period is $14,400. Similar calculations are used to determine standard costs for other categories of employees, example, cooks, dishwashers, and others. Calculated standard costs are useful for evaluating the efficiency of scheduling. A principal requirement for gaining control over cost in food and beverage operations is the establishment of standards to be used for making comparisons and judgments. Quality and quantity standards have been cited as critical standards that must be established before management can begin to control costs. Quality and quantity standards for labor are established by organizing an enterprise, preparing job descriptions, and scheduling employees. Remember, we talked about that a few moments ago. Having established these standards, one can turn to the second step in the process, training all individuals to follow standards and standard procedures. And that takes us to the end of this week's lesson on managing labor costs. So next week we are out on holiday,
Yes,
which I
sir.
totally forgot.
Yes, sir.
And so the other week we will look at managing other related costs. And that I may look at cost volume profit analysis. I will have to look at the objectives of the unit, and based on the objectives of the unit, I will decide how I'm going to formulate the lesson. But we're definitely going to look at break-even analysis in some detail. And so that is the week after next, we will come back and we will be looking at managing other costs in the restaurant establishment. Now, it is important that you guys familiarize yourself with the how to do the payroll, because I suspect you may get your practical may be on that. So you have to understand how to do gross pay, how to do net pay, how to calculate the NIS, income tax, education tax. And in this specific example, I've included also the portion for the employer's amount. So remember, the employer pay NIS, education, NHT, and HRACC, right? And the HRACC is 3% of the payroll cost. But in this example, I just use the gross pay because I would not be able to determine what the payroll cost is. So I wanted to do it for each employee. So if I take out HRACC, right, I would just add in the employer's NHT, the employer's education tax, plus the gross pay for the employee, and find the 3% of that. That is how you would find it. So it would be the fourth gross emoluments was 412,900, and then now you would add 12,287 plus the 14,306 plus the 12,387, and then find 3% of that to get the heart amount. But if you want to find out how much each employee is costing you, then this is how I do it. So I just wanted to show the breakdown. That's why I broke it down here to say, okay, how much each of these people costing?
Okay, sir.
So the total
But
payroll.
normally it would be the hotel that pay the heart, right?
Yeah, man, is the hotel that pays that. But remember, you are operating as if you are the hotel, not the employee.
Ah,
Yes,
okay.
so that is why you're
Okay.
learning. So this is not
Yes,
from
yes,
an
yes.
employee's perspective. This is from the
Standpoint.
employee. Yes. So if you are the manager
Employee
or whatever,
standpoint.
and you have to go through all of this are trouble you know. To figure
Yes.
it. I may send the exercise. I may send this with the formulas and stuff.
Please
Uh,
do, sir, because Miss no
um.
getting 100%, but by sending it, I will practice.
Okay. So I will email the information so that you guys can have it. Anyways, that's it for this week's lesson. I will
Thank you
see
and have a good
you
Easter
in the
weekend.
next 2 weeks. Okay, same to you. Enjoy
Yes,
your
sir.
Easter weekend and
All
stay
right, sir.
safe.
You too, sir. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yes, sir.